So, there's a saying about planning and performance. The 5 P's. Proper planning prevents poor events prevents poor something. Shoot, I should have written this intro down somewhere. The 5 P's. It'll come to me. Let's circle back to that. If you're new here, I'm Nick, and this week on Sawyer Design, I've got a quick organizational project that includes a way to make perfect miters on a design that I totally botched and recovered with a very useful trick that I think you'll find helpful. All this for something I probably could have bought in 5 minutes for way less money, but it wouldn't have been nearly as cool looking as this project, and a trip to the store would have made for a pretty lame woodworking video, so let's get into it. Through my college years, I worked in fine dining, and there was a term they toss around quite a bit, mise en place, meaning everything in its place. Or so I'm told. I don't actually speak French. Despite the clutter of my tiny shop, I'm actually a pretty tiny dude, a pretty tidy dude, and having a place for everything makes us feel nice, and putting things in boxes confirms that the cat-worshipping Egyptians may have actually been onto something. So I've been saving some really wide, nice-looking walnut boards that had some big, nasty bug holes on one side that I had set aside for just an occasion such as this. Hoarding is acceptable, so long as the trash is fancy. To improve skills with your woodworking, there's a few things that can make anyone build better stuff. The first thing that takes any average worker to the next level is attention to the grain. This wide board is way too wide for me to run through the joiner, so the order of operations that maximizes the beautiful grain of that wide board is to first establish one straight edge so that it's safe to run through the table saw and rip in half hot dog style. Now that it fits the joiner, we can establish one straight face for reference to slice hot dog style yet again on the bandsaw, and then we can reassemble the fillet back together, making sure to keep the boards in order with the Deathly Hallows Horcrux, or Carpenter's Triangle. And as we unfold it, you can see that we have a grain match, top, bottom, left, right. And this creates a continuous grain wrap that'll go all the way around the box and just won't stop. Alright, quick scene change here. We are currently in my front yard, and I'm switching gears a little bit from our usual woodworking to something that I find just as essential, and that's taking care of our outdoor space with this week's sponsor, Sunday. So my dad's retired, and he's always going on about how crappy his neighbors' lawns are, so I can only imagine what my retired neighbors think of me. And I'm here to tell you, don't piss off your elders. Just get Sunday. Imagine a lawn plan that is so simple yet powerful. It's crafted with the best of nature's ingredients and designed specifically for your home. That's Sunday for you. They create a tailored lawn care plan, automatically ship everything to you straight to your front door, and the best part is that it's all free of harsh chemicals in case you're worried about your pets or kids. In my hands, I've got these nutrient pouches from Sunday. They're zero pesticides, and they are as easy to use as they are effective. Just take them out of their sleeves, hook them up to the hose, and you're good to go. I've been trying them out, and let me tell you, it's a game changer for your lawn care routine. It's so much easier than going to the store and buying all of the bags and bottles of things and trying to remember when and where to put it on and how much potassium and nitrate you need for your lawn. And it just really simplifies the entire routine. And because you're a part of the Sawyer design community, I've got a special deal just for you. Just use Sawyer 30. That's Sawyer 30 for 30% off your first purchase at getsunday.com. Check out the link below. That's getsunday.com/Sawyer, or use the code Sawyer30 for 30% off your first purchase. And trust me, your lawn and your retired neighbors will thank you. Let's make our outdoor spaces as beautiful as our furniture by checking out Sunday below. Keep crafting and caring inside and out. Thanks, Sunday, for supporting this video. Now let's get back to it. Okay, so we've turned a rough slab of wood into a board. Now there's a few ways to turn this into a sexy box that hot cats will want to sit in. The difference comes down really to corners. Unless you're using pocket screws, all corners are just kind of time consuming, no matter how you cut it. Pun intended. We were talking about ways to take your craft to the next level, and I think the following applies to practitioners across the board in every vertical. And that's details. The kind of details you know to appreciate not so much when you see them, but when you touch them, when you feel them. And one detail I have always loathed is the mitered corner. Even in plywood, they are fussy. They're not particularly strong, but they do look really nice when they're done correctly. You can certainly cut them on a saw, but I prefer to use a router and a 45-degree bit with the board clamped flat to a reference surface that's exactly square to the front edge. Solid wood panels are going to move. They almost always cup a little. They're difficult to get proper pressure across the entirety of the cut on a saw. I found that using a router table just works really well for me, albeit a little more difficult on larger projects like a dresser, at least in my limited space with the tooling that I own, but the same effect can be achieved with a fixture and a handheld router for the big stuff. By slowly stepping up the height of the router bit, you can ensure a really safe and clean cut. If you try to cheat it, as I'm doing here, by taking just a light pass and then coming back through, you're actually feeding the bit into an inconsistent surface, and the bit is way more likely to grab on and fling it back at your nuts. Baby wipes aren't only great for cleaning up glue in the shop. So with my denim cleaned, I utilize that reference board and slowly step up to the perfect miter. Spec tape, which I'll link below, is my pressure-sensitive adhesive of choice for jigs and fixtures, but man does it stick. Hot tip, a little glory hole before fixing the jig is a really good bet to make it easy to remove your workpiece. Otherwise, digging it out with a knife has a tendency to mar an edge, and that'll require some fixing down the road. Details. Using a straight edge for reference, you can make sure that those fine edges of a miter all meet up really nicely, and your box stays a box. Almost all furniture is a box. And then I thought, ooh, maybe a table isn't a box, so maybe all furniture is a box or a part of a box. A table is a box with one side solid and 5 sides framed. Anyway, in some ways, we're always just rebuilding and iterating on the first box that we ever made. That is until you get into curves, but that's not this video. So I'm always looking for ways to make a box more interesting than a box. For this box, I'll be template routing a cutout detail to add a little bit of that interesting into the side, and then lining the box to add a bit of depth. By doing both cutouts at one time, I can ensure that they're not only symmetrical, but it also saves some time in doing them both in one pass. The router usually makes the cleanest cut with the smallest amount that it has to take off. So I very carefully just run the template and the pieces through the bandsaw, getting as close to the template without touching it as possible, leaving about a 1/16 of an inch for the template bit. I should probably address this at some point. I seem to have ruffled some feathers in my last video, so I just want to assure everyone that I vow to never speak ill of Princess Diana again. I'm honestly a really big fan too. Woodworking only from now on. No sarcasm. So now that we've addressed that, I'm building a box out of walnut, and I mean, honestly, I'm not sure what more you want me to tell you, because you can see what I'm doing on the screen, and that's why you clicked on a video and not a book. I know some of you would rather hear shop sounds or maybe music, but then you don't know what's going on, and many have expressed a distaste for my psychedelic scores. So I'd like to explain it, but then people tell me I'm talking too much. And listen, I'm a real people pleaser at my core. So I've come to the conclusion that the only common ground is absolute silence, with a supplemental PDF and/or course playlist, shopping list, and philosophical dissertation on design choices available for download below. Yeah, no, I can't. Sorry. I'm just going to do what I usually do, and if you must, please feel free to utilize that lovely little mute button that YouTube provides. Right, so I've been thinking a lot about power and seamless subject transitions, obviously. It's interesting, the power that creativity has over the powerful. It's like the one thing you can't have to be truly powerful is the ability to dissociate from the ego long enough for empathy to create an artistic expression to be enjoyed by all. In other words, you got to be on guard to be powerful, and that guard is counterproductive to the creative. And I know a lot of woodworkers, DIYers, or craftspeople shy away from the artist identity. I think utilitarian objects make people happy, and happy is a feeling, and art evokes feeling. Nobody's happy sitting on the floor, so if you make it so people don't have to sit on the floor, you're an artist. The powerful people of the world only wish they could possess that kind of will over mankind. But power over the self sounds like a much more admirable trait to pursue, and the ultimate power being understanding, or I suppose mastery. For myself, mastery would have to be where I draw my line. I'm no master. A master sees all, understands all, and thus can rewrite the rules to all. Few of us will ever reach the Neo bending the matrix to his will level of mastery. We're all kind of practitioners. That is, once we find a knack that interests us enough to move beyond dabblers. Some people dabble for a lifetime, looking for something that speaks to them at a core level enough to pursue practitioner status. I hope to get to the point where I know Kung Fu.
I know Kung Fu. Show me.
Ultimately, I just feel fortunate to have found my niche to exercise as a practitioner. If you're a woodworker, you may have spotted this shiny new saw stop in the shop. to replace the gold top that I had for the past few years, and I'm really happy to report that I've decided to step down from the gangster life, turn in my flashy fofo, and trade into something a little classier with a partnership with SawStop. So far, great for woodworking, but has really let me down at our first annual weenie roast. I opted for the 5 horsepower industrial model because I could. And my truck is small, so I need somewhere to overcompensate. As we've established, I'm a pretty tiny dude. Seriously though, moving from a 4 horsepower Harvey to anything less than 4 horsepower just didn't seem right, as I'm always ripping 8-quarter hardwood, and that was not a euphemism. Jury's still out on the left mount router table. I love the support on the left of the saw. The footprint in my little shop is great, being able to consolidate all that, but I still need to figure out some storage solutions and different supports for the cast iron wing. Dust collection on the router side is awesome. I may need to look at some larger dust collectors, as my 3 horsepower doesn't have quite enough suck to use the overhead dust collection at the same time as the cabinet. The saw has a ton of power, and overall I'm really happy with the machine so far. Thanks to the folks at SawStop, I'm super stoked to be working with another great local company. So the liner that's set back from the front a little is done and in place, and I've just selected to do a little bit of shiplap for the back panel. This gives the wood a bit of breathing room, and we'll just trim that in to keep it in place. Right, so let's see, where were we? Taking it to the next level. There's a 90th percentile that almost anyone can achieve, but it's that last 10% that almost works on the subconscious level with the interaction between the viewer and the final piece. It's breaking the edge just right, taking the time to sand properly with a low raking light, run your hand over every edge and make sure that the corners are smooth and won't snag, and it's all the finesse that requires you to slow down at the part where you just want to hurry up and finish. It's kind of a game of patience. The craftspeople that inspire do a really great job at crushing that last 10%. The last 10% is also the hardest to achieve because it requires careful attention to the entire 90% leading up to the final pass. Setting yourself up for success is kind of like driving. You got to pay attention to what you're doing, but also look far enough ahead to predict where you're going. Otherwise, the craft can feel really reactive and stressful. My wife works in a pretty intense job in the pediatric intensive care unit, where they see all kinds of the worst things imaginable. I'm impatient and get flustered when somebody rings my doorbell when I'm trying to focus, so I asked her how everyone keeps their cool when families are losing their shit and while kids' lives are literally on the line. And she shared something that I think of almost every day. Stress, panic, frustration, reactive response really only happens when there isn't a plan. And they almost always have a plan. I think we can take that advice into so many places in life and in craft. Go in with a plan and know that the process will not only be less stressful, but also more enjoyable, easier to reach the finish line. I think a lot of people get frustrated with projects, and a lot of projects don't get finished because they haven't gone to the time or effort of planning. That reminds me, proper preparation prevents poor performance. The 5 Ps. You gotta be shit. I know how to fix this. Perfect. Subtle flex, I was fortunate enough to find my work in the pages of Fine Woodworking magazine, so that was pretty dang cool and really what sparked the idea for this little box. Turns out, only the old ones are too long. I did measure the new magazines correctly, I just didn't go through and measure the old ones, which is fine because nobody needs page numbers. Thanks for watching, everyone. We'll catch you on the next one. Peace.